When I talk about Bufori making its own components, what I mean by that is there are certain components that don't economically become viable. Those components become things like transmissions and an engine, computer modules. They're the things that we don't make, but just about everything else on the car we make. Now the reason we do these is because nobody's going to produce anything for you in small quantities. Let me give you some examples. Designing an engine is very easy. An engine is actually not a very difficult thing to build. To design and produce an engine is very easy, very simple, relatively speaking. The complication with designing an engine, I'm using that as an example, okay? An engine is a very simple thing to design, but the problem with designing engines is not making the engine itself, not putting it into production, not testing its endurance. It's the homologation of the engine itself. Homologation is the magical word here. And that is certifying an engine to be emission-friendly, environmentally friendly, and it's got the endurance, the environmental endurance, reliability, and efficiencies. That's the challenge. Designing an engine, just to put you in perspective, costs you, for example, $1 million. But the emission testing or the homologation of that engine would cost you $5 million. So homologating an engine would cost you something like 5 times more than it cost you to build that engine in the first place. Now, we buy engines, we buy a gearbox, we buy brake calipers, for example, but everything else we'll make. The shock absorber, for example, we will make. Nobody will make shock absorbers in small quantity to the standard that you want. The shock absorber on a Bufori is a serviceable item. It's not a throwaway item. On a Mercedes or a BMW, when your shock absorber fails, you throw it away. On a Bufori, you service it. If you don't bend it, you never replace it for the rest of your life, for the life of the car. You dismantle it, you change the oil, you change the gas, you change the seals, put them back together again and use it again for life. You know, gas struts, open the bottom of the car, for example. It's almost like a shock absorber. We don't buy those, we have them made for us. The shock absorber we make in-house. The gas strut, people will make them for us. So things like the bodywork of the car. 100% of the body of the car is made in-house. Nobody's going to make the body for you. Things like door hinges we have to make ourselves because they're unique to the application. But a door locking mechanism we have to buy. You can't homologate them. The testing of homologating a door locking mechanism is so exorbitant it doesn't make it viable. And a door locking mechanism is one of those components. There's only a handful of makers in the world that make for just about everybody in the industry. Just to put you also in perspective, Bufori vehicles are designed to comply to the most stringent standards in the world. Every nut and bolt, every screw, every washer is certified by TÜV. For those of you that don't know what TÜV is, TÜV. And we use TÜV Rheinland in Germany to certify every single component that goes into a vehicle. Now, why do we use TÜV? In Malaysia, you've got Serum, Australia's got the standards, Japan's got its own. And we're in this part of the world, we sell our cars all around the world. We sell cars in 40 countries around the world. If you can comply to the most stringent standard in the world, we've complied to all the sub-standards. So we design our vehicles to meet the highest standard in the world. And it's also in the form of an endorsement. It's also peace of mind for the company. We sell cars to the richest people in the world. And I don't mean that lightly. And you want to know that you're giving them a car that is durable, a car that's reliable, a car that's safe, and a car that's going to work every single time. We can't afford to take chances. It's not about the commercial viability. It's about producing an honest product. And that's really what we're really all about. Did I answer that kind of right?
I have a question, please. Should I stand? Okay, sure. Your car, your car, right? It's kind of a car that's marketed towards high-end consumers, right? The wealthier types. So I was just wondering, since how do you go about marketing this type of car to the Malaysians around here? I know this is kind of a silly question, but
to be honest with you, it's not a silly question. You know, we're in Malaysia. We think that we sell a lot of cars in Malaysia. We don't. Malaysia's been one of the hardest countries in the world for us to sell our cars. We have two issues here, and I'll be very candid. Okay, there's no disrespect to Malaysia in any sense of the word. One of the greatest problems, or one of the biggest problems that we have here is the exorbitant excise duty we have to pay. Now, even though the car is more Malaysian than anything else on the road in Malaysia, and it's probably the only car that is genuinely 100% designed and developed and produced right here in Malaysia by Malaysians, we have to pay really exorbitant excise duty. And the excise duties is equal to that or greater than that of an imported vehicle. And why do you have to pay excise duty on a vehicle that is made in Malaysia? Doesn't make a lot of sense. As far as I'm concerned, it's an obligation. I'm happy to pay it. I've got no choice. But Malaysians don't like to pay it. And that's what makes it so hard for us to sell cars in Malaysia. We do have cars in Malaysia. And some of Malaysia's richest people are our customers. And these are people that will buy it because they believe in what we're doing. They don't care about the duty portion. I'll say I don't care what it costs. As long as it's a Bufori, I'll buy it. And I'll buy these cars. I'll pay the duties and taxes happily. But the majority of the people that can afford these cars don't want to pay the government these excise duties. How we market these cars around the world. Now, the other issue in Malaysia is, well, it's really that one issue. Okay, I won't go into any more depth. How we market these cars internationally, these cars sell themselves. A lot of our customers are repeat, and these cars, we don't have massive dealership networks. These cars sell themselves. You only have to see one before you notice it. It's not like a car that looks like someone else's. It's not a generic design. It's a very unique design. So once you've seen one, it sticks in the back of your mind. You never forget it. So it's one of those things that, you know, it stays with you for a very long time. People call classic design cars these days, they call them Bufori designs. And we do motor shows around the world, and people will come up to you and say, oh, my grandfather used to have one of these in 1939. Yeah, okay, fantastic. It was a Bufori. But the cars were only around in 1986. But it's not a generic design. It's a classic design, but it's very contemporary. And the way these cars are marketed is simply on the fact that it's an honest product, it's reliable, it's dependable, it's safe, it's modern, although it looks classical. It's in a class all on its own. The typical question that is asked is about competition. Unfortunately, we don't have competitors. That's probably a disadvantage to us, but we welcome competition. If you had competition, you've got something to weigh up against. You've got something to be compared to. We don't have competition, unfortunately. You know, some people say your car looks a bit like a Morgan. Well, those of you that have ever owned a Morgan or experienced the Morgan and experienced it before, you'll see we are no competition to each other. What we have, what Morgan have, are two different things. Morgan has the heritage. They have a wooden frame chassis. They don't have the refinements, they don't have the creature comforts, they don't have the luxuries. I'm not putting Morgan down. But what Bufori has got is it's got the refinements, it's got the attention to detail, it has the fine tolerances, it has the incredible attention to detail. It's a car that is literally designed to last for many generations. Very different to what everybody else in the industry is about. So that's what sells Bufori, that's why people buy these cars. The chassis are made of stainless steel, the body's made of carbon fibre and Kevlar. You can throw one of these cars in the Indian Ocean, leave it there for 100 years and take it out, descale it, and you'll have the car still there in the same shape and will not deteriorate. These are materials that are literally designed to last for thousands of years, not hundreds of years. They'll last forever. It's not biodegradable,
unfortunately. You talk about training your staff to be skilled workers in knowledge. Well, I actually, in my area, I look at knowledge management. So how do you attract these kind of people, retain them, and get them to share or pass on their knowledge to the newer staff then?
Very good question. We don't have any specific way of attracting these people. In fact, it's a challenge finding workers, people who are willing to work. People feel very intimidated. I'll just share an example with you. A few days ago I was approached by a trainer who's spent the last 30 years of his life training cars for one of the top Japanese car manufacturers. He speaks fluent Japanese, he's very well respected, you only have to mention his name and everybody knows him. And he came to the factory, he came to our factory just to see if there's an opportunity there. He was retrenched because of his age. Now, when he came to see what we're doing, and he was looking at an opportunity working for us, and he saw the way they were painting the cars, he was so intimidated, he refused. He gave me his resume, and his CV was about that thick, very impressive. He's got all the experience in the world, but he was so intimidated, he refused to actually apply for the job. So I asked him why, and he said, I would never be able to achieve what you're doing. Now, that's probably one of the challenges that we have, finding workers. We're going through that right now. We've got orders coming out of our leads, We're trying to recruit people, we can't find people who even want to come in for an interview. They feel intimidated. When they see what you do and they think, how the hell am I going to do it? Can I meet their expectations? It's a challenge, believe me, and it's very difficult to do.